Hello, I'm Crystal Meach with Tao of the Heart, and today we have Lori Wallace from Career Ecology, and we're going to learn her story today, and I'm so excited to tell it. A few weeks ago we met, and I was just like so just fascinated by everything that you went through to bring
Mhm.
this to life. And yeah, I'm going to give you the floor. So,
Mhm.
where should we begin?
I love that you even asked that. You're so open and beautiful. I just want to acknowledge Chance here. I want to share with the listeners the story a little bit too, because we should give a shout out to Alignable. There's this
Yeah,
website that's all about connecting people. And I've been so busy and overwhelmed. Who else in the world is not busy and overwhelmed right now? And so I have Alignable and I just haven't had the space yet to figure it out, which this amazing woman, Crystal Meach in front of you, will help me with, she promised.
yeah,
And
totally.
I know that it's doing magic because one day there was a note. It came through my email from Tao of the Heart, and I decided to click it. And then, Crystal, the way that your message, your outreach, your curiosity, your poetic energy and form was the first time in Alignable that I responded. And then we got on the phone and we had over an hour conversation. I think we didn't realize. And you were saying something like, "Oh, I wish that I had pressed play and started a
Yes.
podcast." And that's what you shared with me, that you want to do this podcast. And then you said this, you said, "Lori, I want to do this." And I mentioned it to people in Alignable. And I've had over 1,000 people say that they would support me and come on the show. And that's when I realized that you are a very powerful manifester, that you basically say something and the universe responds to you. That is not my experience in my life. I work really, really hard for it and find that the more I ask, sometimes the more the universe in a way turns away, because I think I'm supposed to learn that I have to be a little bit more, I don't know, it's going to take more time. I have to feel a little bit more pain. It's just my journey. And when I saw that you had this sort of presence, that you could call it out and the universe would respond, I knew I wanted to be part of your podcast. I knew I also felt the desire to
Yes.
respond and to celebrate that. So, yeah, wow. So I'm the first here, and it feels really good to be in a call and response with you. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, like I said, I'm so excited. And I just want to dive in. Like, I want all my listeners to hear, what I heard the first time, like your whole
Yeah.
story of how you came
Mhm.
up with the career ecology and how you're showing up for
Mm.
so many people that need you right now.
Thank you. Well, I love that you said right now. Career ecology really has come to full flower. You're going to notice I'm going to say a lot of nature analogies. I'm just
That's good.
warning everyone, right? Because it's career ecology. Hello. The
Yeah.
word ecology really, if you look in the dictionary in the way that I've come to use it as well, is it means the relationship of a biological being with its environment. And I've taken and expanded that to say it's a relationship, an authentic relationship with your environment, external and internal. So, if we research, or if we learn from Carl Jung and others that are depth psychologists and social psychologists, they know, and what we know is that the world can only harmonize and be healthy when each person is in relationship in a healthy way to themselves. And that means, yeah, we've got wounds. We've all been born into a world where we're sort of initially, immediately abandoned from the womb. There is an initial experience. I think some babies get slapped, right? We've seen that in
Mhm.
movies, so the baby
Yeah.
will cry.
Mhm.
That's traumatizing. And other things will happen to different individuals depending on their life and depending on where they land, in society and how society has divided you or I from each other. So those traumas can be at different scales, but there still is this very fundamental trauma that we all feel of, abandonment of self. It's this, in order to survive as a child, we do need to obey. We do need to come, we have to tame our wildness to a certain extent and show up in a system, in a family system, and then in a school system that says, you be this way or you will reap the consequences. So that's, of course, expected so that we can come into a society and we can learn the rules. We can understand about speed limits and expectations. And that's how a society works. But it is traumatizing each time that you have to bottle it up and say, stop that, separate from that impulse. So when we get into our 20s, now is the time to really heal that ecology. What is my relationship to the external world through my relationship first healing my internal world? So this is why I founded Career Ecology. At the heart of it is empowerment, and at the heart of that is the story that began from, which I'm going to pause because I want to hear you. I want to see you in this conversation and what you're thinking about. But I'll share the story in a moment of when I went from a desperately compliant woman to a woman cracking and breaking open and quite confused by that, to a woman now nearly 60 who is grateful to be broken open and what I'm doing with it here with Career Ecology. But I wanted to give a little bit of that backstory for everyone because we're all this inner child and we have this invitation to heal the ecology.
Yeah, and I think people really, they can resonate with that, like, everything that you said. I mean, definitely we need order in society in
Yeah.
order to grow,
Yeah.
and it's finding that balance, and, I can't wait for everyone to hear your story of how you found it
Yeah.
and cracked open, and
Mm-hmm.
I know for my own self, just
Mm-hmm.
deep diving. I mean, it's been like 6 or 7 years now where I've really been looking into, what is my relationship to myself and where did I betray myself? And
Mm-hmm.
as a result of that, how do people treat me because
Mm-hmm.
I have to please them? And and then how do I heal that relationship with myself? And how does that then
Mm-hmm.
how do I show up in the world, and how does that
Yeah.
affect my relationships?
Wow, that is such a beautiful place to start and so loving, so compassionate. You know, this morning before this podcast, I was working on my manuscript for this poetry book that I am bringing to a contest. We'll see what happens, but next March. And I was working on a particular poem I wrote called Atmospheric River. And first of all, atmospheric river. This is a word that's used right now because we have all these climate changes. You know, in California, we hear on the news atmospheric rivers coming. You know, and everyone's like, oh my gosh! And I hear that word, and to me, it feels like being swept away by love. Because to me, you know, I'm such a romantic. I always have been, and rivers have such a force. They have such a life force, and they flow down. Gravity helps. They gain speed. They meander and they make their way to the sea of love. And there are lines from Fleetwood Mac and others that I just want to drown in the sea of love. You know, there's that
Oh,
song. And I, as a young girl, was very romantic and very swept up in the idea of being overcome by love. I listened to songs, I watched movies where women swooned, and I thought all of that was just so being overcome by love. But what started to happen as I approached the age of 12 and came into my teenage years is that I realized I was being shaped to be compliant and to not so much to be passionate with love and to break open and to be with that, but more to be obedient and to be a resource for a different sort of power structure. And so that need for, or that love of love became a need for love. It became a question of self worth, and so I showed up that way. I gave away my light. I hid my light. I put it away and showed up in a way that I thought maybe I could be chosen. And I've heard that there's something with young girls right now in high school and in middle school saying they're calling girls something like choose me, or pick me, pick me. It's something like that. It's this meme. And these girls look at other girls and say, well, they're just trying to be picked and chosen. When you have that kind of bullying going on, we know as adults that that's projection, that the person that's screaming that out to another is really saying, please pick me. So, what I realize and what I see as an elder now is that girls and women, young women, are still swept up in this, still finding I'm not worthy unless I'm picked. So, what
Hmm.
happened to me on this journey was, thank goodness, my soulmate saw me in college through all of my, kind of inauthenticity and yearning. And I was still desperate, but I was depressed. I was in a beautiful university, should have been the best years of my life, but I had given myself away. I didn't have my power, and others knew it. You could tell. And my soulmate saw me, and we had met in middle school, and so we saw each other again. And he said, I love you. And I said, well, I love you as a friend. And I put him through the Ross and Rachel for 4 years, friends reference there. And it was very, very true. Very true. And he was, I set him up with all my friends, and I tried to pawn him off so that he would, stop coming on so strongly. And finally, long story short, we did come together and we got married, and we began the process of battling each other's coping mechanisms. Our marriage was tumultuous, but deeply, deeply loving. And every time I imagined myself running free of this marriage, I would get a message that said, he is your soulmate. Stay and work it, walking through the fire. You can manage this battle for love. Then forward to age 36. And that's when I finally got pregnant. And I had been trying for 10 years. And it took IVF. It took a lot of effort. And I get pregnant, and it's a beautiful pregnancy. But September 11th, 2 months prior to my due date, I see on TV, like hundreds and thousands and millions of us, that this attack is not an accident. And I go into labor. My husband takes me into the hospital. I managed to keep my baby in, but this marks the beginning of my undoing, of my unraveling as the compliant woman, Crystal. This the birth of my child. I know he was part of this moment. He came in at this time, the Twin Towers. I lost my job. I was laid off because of the recession. And then I fell into autoimmune, absolute collapse. We're talking, I looked almost like I had leprosy. I had swollen eyelids with styes on styes and blepharitis, and my skin, every single inch of it was covered with a rash. And I couldn't open any joint without pain. I had onsets, all sorts of autoimmune sort of illnesses that could have lasted forever. And thank goodness they haven't, because of moving from compliance into self-care. Every single aspect of my life fell apart. Even my child became ill. But I had also gained a child. I had gained motherhood. And I said at that time, I will show up for this child, and I am not going to be a mother stuck in bed. I'm going to show up, and I will do anything I need to do. That is the beginning. And we'll talk in a moment about career ecology. But I wanted to share that, and I'm glad you asked, because we have a chance in life. These moments that break us down and open and shatter us are the greatest gifts. I call them antagonistic mentoring. This one was antagonistic mentoring to the nth degree, because every single aspect changed: how I ate, how I worked, where I lived, being a mother from being a maiden prior, everything, everything. And oh my gosh, I'm so grateful. I am so grateful. I think even with my beautiful soulmate, who had his chisel and his hammer and was working away at my coping mechanisms, which showed up as people pleasing, conflict adverse, all of that. Had this other breakdown not happened, I would not really live fully alive right now. I would not know really what this experience of being one with the mystery of inviting chaos, to the extent that I want to continue to break down so that I can open beyond this very strong structure that our human system has set up for us that keeps us from love. Rumi talks about it. He's like, it's not for you to seek love. It's for you to seek out the barriers that you have built against love. That's the work. Then the love floods, and then it does take you over, just like what I dreamt about as a young girl. Gosh, right? The Tao of the heart.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it
And
starts there.
I'm just thinking of also your husband's journey as you went through all
Mhm.
this.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
I mean, all the ways that you felt not worthy of love.
Hmm. Mm. You know, my husband's journey, he's an introvert and I'm an extrovert. So there was a lot of battling there. Why can't you just have fun and go out? Why do you judge me? Why can't you accept me for just wanting to be quiet and depressed today? You know, we just had all of this going on. And my husband's journey through his wounds was that I loved him with all my heart. I was raised for unconditional love, even with the issues that still kind of formed me into this woman with all of these coping mechanisms. I was raised with unconditional love, which is interesting because there was still so much confusion there, you know, with things going on. And I gave it to my husband, but he was raised in a family that he didn't know he had that. He had a nightmare that when his nightmare as a child is that he would go to bed and see a fluffy pillow. And as a small child, he would run to the pillow and wrap his arms around it and put his head on it. But it was actually a block of cement. So, you know, if you go into that Jungian place, you can see this dream says as a child, something that looks comforting and safe that you can cuddle with is actually a hard block of rock, you know, that you cannot cuddle with. So my husband for about 15 years, we've been married for 33, rejected my love. He didn't trust it. And one day I was at a conference called the Wisdom 2.0 conference, which I highly recommend, which started at the time of the surge of .com. You know, I lived that. Here we come with AI, you know, which is coming. It's here and it's coming. And I see the next surge. And we lived through, you know, the .com as well. And we were in the Bay Area. And Wisdom 2.0 conference said we need to keep the wisdom of the human and the heart, and we need to make sure that that's integrated with this technology change. And so they brought all these people together on stage and in breakouts. They had Tibetan monks who came and did gorgeous sand mandalas. They had rooms where you could sit on pillows and sip on tea and you could listen to chants. It was a true integration of these worlds. And one day, one year, I went to about 5 of them. And now down here, I haven't been lately and I need to go. But John Kabat-Zinn, who is a preeminent mindfulness teacher in our country, really behind leading that, was a speaker on the stage. And afterwards, he said, if you would like to talk with me, I will be in sort of this main room that, again, was sort of tented. It almost looked like we were in the Middle East somewhere. It was just gorgeous, like we were in Tibet. And I joined him. I knew I needed to talk to him because my heart was so heavy, given the fact that my husband did not let me love him. He didn't believe in it. He wasn't sure. And I get in line, and there's 3 people ahead of me, 2 people, 1 person. And I get up to John, and he says, what question do you have for me? And I said, oh, and I started to cry. And I said, what does one do when you love someone with all your heart and they won't let it in and they reject it? And he looked back and he said, you need to ask yourself, why is it that you need to have this experience? And that was a complete reversal of what I expected. You know, I don't know, maybe I just wanted some like, oh, poor dear darling, you know. He says what you can do to soothe yourself, or, you know, here's something. And the mirror was turned back. And this was a teaching earlier on about antagonistic mentoring. What is the guidance for me? So I left that and I dreamt on it all night. And I woke up knowing that I needed to not just know about authentic or unconditional love. I needed to actually, I needed to experience it. I had it as a child, so it was automatic. Now I needed to walk the talk in a way. I needed to give it to somebody who didn't know what it was. And that when you have unconditional love, it means that you give it and you don't have to get it back, you know?
Mhm.
So that weekend, Crystal, oh my gosh, what I did is I put on a gown that I had bought for the Obama inauguration. And it was a you know, almost ceiling to floor, I almost said, but it was a full length gown. If you can picture it, it was like a beautiful color of champagne, like a pink beige. And it was almost like a slip with this chiffon on the outside. And it was beaded with little tiny spaghetti straps. And it was just gorgeous. And I had worn it only for this one event. And I decided to do something for my husband to live what I had just learned through John and through myself. And what I did was I created two little notes on parchment paper. And one was about taking the chance, stepping over the line and trusting love, even though he wasn't sure he could. And then the other was more of an affirmation of what would come. And so I scrolled them up in little beautiful satin ribbons. I put on my hiking boots with this dress, with these two scrolls, and I went into this beautiful park behind us that's filled with redwood trees. And I went down the trail, held up my dress, from the dirt, went down the trail and ended up at this huge redwood that my husband and I would go and sit by sometimes and just marvel at. I had left him a note at home, knowing that my son was actually in an after school program. And I had left a note saying, come to essentially, the tree, whatever we called it at the time. I will be there. So I sat there and I waited. I had placed the scrolls in little pockets of bark in the tree that he could discover. And as I waited, two women walked by with their huge Burmese mountain dogs. And everyone was like, what are you doing? I'm dressed this way, right? And they're everybody. And as I was sharing with them, gently what I was doing, not all the way, their dogs ran over to the tree and swallowed the scrolls. So we all screamed. The women were mortified. They knew. We jammed our hands down the throats and we pulled, the string was still hanging out of their mouth. We pulled them out. They were sopping wet. I mean, these are dogs with normal saliva times like a million, right? Because these are like these droopy, whatever.
Yeah.
So I open it. It's barely going to hold together, but it's still okay. So I asked them to go along. Thank you for stopping. And off they go. And then my husband shows up and he comes to the tree, and he's shocked to see me. I have taken a stick and I have drawn a line in the dirt before the tree. And I put my hand over it and I say, will you have an experience of unconditional love with me today? If you will you step over this line? And he did. And he opened up the slobber, scrolls, and he read the beautiful messages. He still has them. They're kind of crunchy and kind of funny, but he still has them in his memory box. And it was really an extraordinary moment of recognizing what it takes to really elevate love and what all of these experiences of abandonment and all these things is like, what is it that I have to gain? How does my experience of love expand? And so you asked about John and he has come to know love finally. I would say it really happened shortly after that, maybe, but it's only been half our marriage that he trusts it now. And we're Benjamin buttoning our marriage. It's getting better and better every day. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. What a beautiful story.
Oh
And I
yeah,
love
still the best.
the humor in the universe
Oh
with
my
the
God.
dogs.
Oh my
Because
God.
I'm always experiencing some sort of humor where it's like, "Ah!"
Yeah, right.
Something like that
I
would
mean,
happen to me.
it's you're so right. And I think we have to remember to say this too, especially like brides. You want your wedding day to be perfect. Or, we have this thing, it must be perfect. No, it's this funny thing. It's this mistake. It's this, whatever happens that makes it more like the world, because everything in nature is the way it is because of some sort of genetic uh, accident, maybe I was going to say, or altercation or alteration. The greatest paintings are also as a result of maybe a mistake that the painter made, a color they put on there that made them think of something different, a line, a stray line that took them in a different direction. They'll all say that. So we have to invite in the imperfection, and that includes inviting in chance, because then your
Yeah,
day could go anyway.
yeah, and it's almost like the perfection in the imperfection.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I know. And yeah, think of like Interstellar or something that just takes you. I
Yeah,
don't know if you've seen that movie, but when you
yes.
think of that, it's like it's taking you into that library where it's like the library and the library and the library. So the imperfection and the perfection and the imperfection and the it never ends.
Mhm.
It is. It's just the cosmos.
Yes.
Getting out there now, but it is.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's so
Okay,
good.
so we're gonna wheel this back to
Mhm.
our journey to career
For
ecology.
ecology. Yes.
I love the
Thank
little
you. Good
rabbit
job.
holes.
Reeling back.
Yep.
Yes. So that moment of cracking open, I we had to move in with my parents, and I just said to John, I said, I have a new career path. And he said, well, what is it? And I said, I know exactly what it is. I need to practice radical kindness. And he said, that's a career path? And I said, well, I suppose there are a million places, I could do it, but I need to figure out where. That's what I need to do. And so my recruiter recruited me to be a recruiter. We picked up our family. We moved to Oregon. I took a pay cut from 180,000 to 40,000 draw. It was not an ego choice. It was 100% heart driven. We go where, the sun doesn't shine as much as California, quite a different culture, in many respects. And honestly, I was miserable there. It turns out that the organization that I worked for was very good at what they did, but they were not practicing radical kindness. They were really practicing pretty much traditional business. And it was all about a sales thing. It was about meeting a number and sometimes pushing hard for that number. I wanted to touch people's hearts. I wanted them to know that no matter what, they always had Lori in their back pocket, that they could call and I would be there. So I would get admonished for being on the phone for a half hour instead of 8 minutes because I had an individual, a professional who'd been laid off, and maybe it brought some new illness in their life, or it caused a disruption in their marriage, and they were really scared. And I would talk to them, or maybe it was a half hour or longer conversation talking about dreams, how somebody feels that they had drifted off their path. So finally, one day, I'm driving to work and I'm crying. I am crying. I have so much. I have like tears, water all over my face, all over my windshield because it was raining again. It's Oregon. And I didn't know what to do. And I heard this voice. It just said, stay with this. This is your future and your path. And that was the day that I began to plan my own agency, how I would leave and I would transform headhunting into human connection and flood it with feminine values of nurturing and transparency and patience and spaciousness and all of this. And so I did. My husband and I left Oregon and I started my own agency, and I've been doing that for, 20 years now. But 2016 marked the next huge blow up in the social fabric of this country. And I felt it deeply. I am a deep feeling woman, as you've come to know. And that's when career ecology was seated in my heart. I realized that I'm helping people one at a time with these wonderful career matches, and they are at the same time being nurtured and loved by me, and they're better for it, and so am I. But I needed to touch more lives, more people that are walking around traumatized, wounded by the actual experience of hunting for a job where you're ghosted, where you don't know if somebody, there's this feeling of, did I perform well enough? Am I liked? Did I ever do anything of value? I mean, overnight, even if you created businesses and created jobs for people and did things around the world, if it's 6 months and nobody's paying any attention, the ego very quickly says, you're no good. You have no worth. And you really forget, did I ever have any value here? I've seen it at all levels, from a new grad up to a CEO. It's just the human way. And I thought, I need to touch this because not only to help heal humans and for my compassion for them, but also I'm an activist. I'm a social activist from the standpoint that I am devoted to helping every human that I can, every human that's hearing this podcast or that comes through Career Ecology's masterclass for job seekers, anyone that comes across anything that I'm offering out to the world, that they emerge empowered back into themselves, that they emerge understanding that their gift and their uniqueness belongs in this world as nature intended. It is through diversity and cooperation that we have a thriving earth, that we have plants and food and oceans and sky and air and everything we need to survive and all the beauty around us. It would not be here without diversity. If you had only one type of ant and then there's a particular crisis, a fungus that comes in and kills them off, actually life on this planet can no longer really thrive. Ants are essential. There are thousands of different types. of ants so that they can adapt. And look at us
Mhm.
humans. We have everybody's so different in their temperaments. We have all different sorts of bodies that react and respond to sun and to water and environment. There's and a lot too, just even the way that our emotional systems are wired and how we respond. And so I knew this as a social activist, that diversity and cooperation is essential for our survival. And I had heard it from Michael Mead in his beautiful podcast. He's a mythologist. And he said, anyone who's listening to this, I call upon you now to enter into the work of empowerment. We need every person to come back into their wholeness now. And I said, all right, I'm doing that. I'm doing that. And I know people need and want it. So, Career Ecology, through 7 years of trial and error, more like, okay, I'm going to do it in this format. No, that's not really what the world's looking for. At first, I brought it through, like, I'll find people through job sites, like, almost like a little Indeed. Like, maybe that's my outreach. No, that's not what's needed. And I tried A, B, C, D. And finally, in this last year, although I have been pretty much, I would say, for the last 5 years in this central place of the healing, of the empowerment, this journey, which I also call Way of the Monarch. But it's really come into the masterclass this year and crystallized. Here's your name.
Yeah.
Into this masterclass for job seekers, which is all about liberating authentic relating across every touch point, external and internal. And so I'm teaching people, in a sense, I'm saying, hey, through this traumatizing channel of being in between work, feeling liminal, feeling lost in exile, guess what? That's where you belong in order to be found by yourself and anyone else. And much happens in the chrysalis. Just look at any monarch. Where did they go? They went from this
Yeah.
ravenous consumer and they went through the complete dissolution of self and they emerged with wings. And now they cross pollinate. They don't consume, they actually help plants grow. This is the trajectory of a human being. And this is what I teach through Career Ecology and through the practical process of interviewing, but it's a Tao. It's very much, it's like the day to day burdens of living. The burden of living is what it feels like. What is that human condition? How do we rise up out of the soil of soul? How do we come forward authentically and invite that other person or that other animal or that moment to join us in that dance of authenticity? And then extraordinary things happen in the world and we harmonize. So there you can see this is not just, hey, you want a resume? It's a
Yeah.
little bit
And
more going on. Yeah.
and I can certainly speak to because you gifted me, um, 3 of the packages, right? It was, the
Yeah.
resume, the dynamic search, and what was the other one? The interview.
And
And
mindful interviewing. Yeah. All of those all are part of, and I've added since, and I need to get these to you. I want to go ahead and make sure you have the LinkedIn optimized. So this whole LinkedIn is a beautiful gift to all of us. So how is that fully optimized so that chance like you can be found, ooh, you actually get to be picked. So there you go.
yes.
But how do we optimize that? And then also, how do you engage your personal and your physical presence local network? So, it's as much as like sit in a coffee shop with your book or computer once a week. And then when you're ready, invite a friend or invite others that maybe are coming, like in your case, you can just say, hey, folks, I'm always going to be at such and such tea house to talk about the Tao of the Heart on Fridays at 10 o'clock for 2 hours. And if nobody shows, you just sit there and you continue just to do your own work, and to people watch, maybe meet a stranger. But if people come, then there's going to be a great relationship and a sharing of wisdom. This is part of how we collaborate with chance without any serious expectation of outcome. So we're not going over the line to over control the response there. It's that dance in that middle, that coming into that 50-50, that yin yang, that mind heart, that masculine feminine. There's like we think about all the dualities in the world and we are suffering from how they've become oppositional. And now is the time for a gorgeous, sexy, passionate, reunion. And it starts with our own hearts and minds. Our minds are like, oh my God, heart, I've missed you. You're fun,
Mhm. Yeah.
and the heart's like, oh mind, I miss you, because sometimes I would like you to be, watching out for me, and I've kind of stepped in a few things, and I don't want to be hurt like that again. I want to learn. I want to be
Mm.
aware of how to navigate this physical human world. And then there's a love affair, and they're back. And my husband and I have really been living it as a couple, and we've been living it internally. I've had to waken up that masculine in me. Oh boy. My husband there's so many stories. Oh God, another time. But have I stepped into it without my masculine at all turned on, and put myself in such ridiculous situations? And my husband has missed out on so much by being so incredibly, protected and defended. He
Mhm.
needs to experience chaos. And I remember I said to him a couple years ago, we had our dog, who's an old lab now, but when he was younger, I went up to my husband and I said, we need more chaos in this house. And he's like, okay, no. And I said, trust me, we do. We need chaos medicine. And he said, well, what are you proposing? I want Manny, at this time it was our dog Manny. I said, I want Manny to be able to come on the bed and cuddle with me. I want to cuddle with my dog in bed. And I know you have very strict rules about that. He said, so we had a compromise. We could put a sheet on the bed, and then my husband could still clean the sheet. And but boy, when my husband saw that happen, chaos. That was the beginning of mine. But my whole presence in his life is pure chaos. So, he doesn't realize it's just there all the time, every second. But that's
Sounds
the
like
dance.
you're
That's
like
the beauty.
you, yeah, like you are the yin and yang.
We are. We are. And we battled each other. We battled what the world is battling. And yeah, I feel like we women, we were born to say, okay, we get to be all feeling, but then we go to work and business and we bring up a feeling, or we bring up an impression or an intuition or a compassion conversation. And there's that, we're trying to talk business, darling. There's that shaming, there's that talking over. I've learned in business meetings that I talk fast. Oh, I have an idea, blah, 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 and I need to unravel that. It's just trying to get the idea out before a man interrupts and says, very nice. That's nice, darling. And, moves on. And what I'm realizing now is that the gift to that person, that situation, or myself is to say, I have a perspective, and it's going to integrate in with the practicals and the poetics of the moment. Is now a good time? Is everybody ready? And then they can be ready. And then I can say, we need to talk about just transitions, or whatever it is if we're talking AI, we need to really consider the human possible devastations that will come. Let's have a whole hour talking about every particular person that could be displaced by AI. I want to understand that first. But, a minute ago, the conversation was all, how does AI help our business, and how do we make money and all that? And here I am, Debbie Downer, uh, perceived that way, but it 100% belongs in that hole.
Yeah.
And I teach that through, and I think I gifted you also Way of the Monarch. Did I get that to you? Yeah. So that journey over 4 months,
Yes. Yes.
when you get to the part about how to communicate safely in the world, you will learn the way of wolves. They do it best, believe it or not. One might think, wait, there are fangs there. That's not the part. There are really extraordinary teachers for humans. Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Amazing.
and, what I love about all the products was it was about me honoring me, and at the same
Mm,
time honoring who I'm coming to partnership with, or potentially coming into partnership with. And
yes.
so
Hmm.
that's what I really needed to learn in your
Yeah.
program.
Oh, you
And,
picked up on that. Good.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and I know, when we were talking last week, we were talking about interviewing, and you said, "Start the interview with gratitude."
Yes.
for, just having the opportunity. And so you're setting the pace for that interview, um, and acknowledging them and then acknowledging yourself too. And so it's just a different way to think about even interviewing or having a conversation, and the questions, putting you in a different perspective of the questions you're asking. Um,
Yes.
and for me, it was different for interviewing because I'm always thinking of, okay, here's the job description. Here's everything that I can check off. And here's all my qualifications. So I meet all the checks on the box. And so I saw my worth as only the checks on the box.
Mm-hmm. Oh my
And
gracious. Yep.
the
Mm,
realization that I'm not the checks on the box. There's so much more
mm,
to me that brings to the table, and my own worth. And so approaching an interview or a job search from a different state of being.
yeah, absolutely. You've nailed it. It's just this mindset shift that allows that interview to now be an equal partnership of curiosity and discovery. Rather than going to an interview and already assuming that the other person has the power and you are either good enough or not good enough to be picked.
Yes.
It's really is this conversation where both parties are asking deep down, who are you, and can you help me? Are you
Yeah.
the one? Can we do great things together? So asking, offering gratitude up front allows the heart to show up. It stays behind the wheel of this journey in a way, and the ego stays in the front seat still as a strategic partner with the GPS open on the phone, but it is there to provide support, information, guidance, intel. But the heart is the one that's actively listening. That's the one that, even if it detects something odd in this stranger before them, a funny tone of voice, a question that seems unusual, maybe the person doesn't smile enough. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that the ego is going, danger, danger. So the ego, its job still in our nervous system is, in any situation, is to scan where is the danger and to be prepared. And we don't want it to change from doing that. That is critical. That is why you and I are here. Our ancestors listened to that and they got out of the jaws of something, and they got out of the way of a train or they did whatever. So we want that. But in this modern world where we now have weapons of mass destruction, really pretty serious things, we have got to lead from our capacity to listen and hold a gap of time or a little bit of a moment before the ego takes over. And the heart is always going to hold that space as the healer, in a way, to say, I'm curious, what was that? How can I help? So, in the interviewing context, I share this. I have this one, it's hilarious, but I have this one recruiter who, when she asks a question, she sounds like a Kardashian. She can't help it. She has this tone of voice. I forget what it's called, but she has a tone of voice where she sounds something like, so Crystal, tell me, why are you interested in this job? So that tone of voice is just very Kardashian, right? But she's not necessarily trying to convey or say there's something wrong with you or there's something wrong with this job, but that's how it sounds just because of the way she talks. So if you have that, the ego right away is going to create a separation, even separated from my mic, a separation, it creates a separation, and now starts to lose its ability to authentically relate, to provide answers that are deep and meaningful. And the separation means too that there isn't a connection being made. But when you lead from the heart, then the experience is, oh, that was interesting. There's something here. There's a need here. Let me lean in more and really help and answer and say, yeah, you know what interests me? So you can see it's moved out of a trigger reactive mode and into a responsive mode. And that's what leading from the heart allows you to do. And it allows
Mhm.
every connection to happen. And then at the end, when the interview's over, You can leave saying, all right, universe, I showed up authentically. I did my part. The rest is now up to you. This match is either in the best interest of us both and the greater good, or it's just not. And it's not a performance issue. So you don't leave going, oh God, did I perform well enough? There's no longer performance anxiety. It is now this match is either meant to be, it will click because it serves these disparate needs, or it doesn't. And something else out there is where I belong. And I want to keep open and I want to search without expectation. I want to engage the mystery and I want to be on a huge adventure and trust that this final result is home. It's where I belong for now.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's a really beautiful way to live.
Yes, it is a beautiful way to live. And, we're talking about the ego, and I think there's so many of those job hunters out there right now that just feel so desperate that
Yeah.
they're giving up their power. And it's about taking back your power, because the
Yeah.
as you raise your vibration, that's when you attract what you
Mm-hmm.
need into
Yes.
your universe.
Completely. Beautiful. Yes. That is how we activate the power of attraction. And that movie, The Secret, a lot of people have watched it and they first learned about the power of attraction. And unfortunately, most people took it on as a utility and didn't quite understand the deep deep aspects of, hey, you are a speck of energy in a very busy complex web of energy. So if you mask it, if you shut off your light, if you say, I won't dance with you, I'm just going to go ahead and be inert, or I'm going to, shut down this light, then you don't move with the Milky Way. You just, in a way, it's like you break that whole gravitational pull. So it's this being in a dance and something beautiful. It's not even about the way the movie says, how do you manipulate everything so that you can get that red car or sports car or something. That's kind of what they even focused on there. But maybe that was an entry point, to kind of
Yeah.
understand that, hey, we're not all responsible. Like we really, there is another mysterious component and job finding, which is a regular part of our human existence, that once you graduate from college or high school or whatever your kind of demarcation point is, that you engage for the rest of your life generally, even if you are at home and you have a partner that is primarily working, you will experience their changes. It still affects the ebb and the flow, and it has a way of kind of painting the ego, and the ego needs to be in partnership. It never wants to be alone. There's a book out there that's called something like Never Search Alone. And that's how it is. It's like be connected with your number one right here. It's almost kind of creepy. It's like I have a ghost right here, but it's like I can turn and say, "Uh-oh, all right, I'm out of work. Uh-oh, that layoff happened. Not what I wanted." So rather than just sit on a stump and go, what do I do next? This is scary. All right, I'm just going to go out there, and you're kind of blindly, and then you're getting all of these like ghostings or no's, and it just takes you down energetically. Initially, after the first kind of, whoa, you eat a couple brownies or, whatever you need to do, kind of like treat yourself to something. But then you literally turn to that blankness and say, we got this. Let's engage this. I know there's a plan and a way and a path, and I'm going to find it, but I'm going to have to surrender to this relationship. I'm going to do my part because I'm the one with the bones and the hands and the brain, and I'm going to do it, but I am in direct collaboration. So what I do teach in Career Ecology is when you begin a career search, it's never just one type of job that you should look for. You should never monocrop that process. It needs to be a threefold path. It has to have, here's the one area that I think I primarily, qualify for. It's what I've been doing. The next one is divergent. Maybe I'll take those skills to a different line or vertical. Maybe I'll go from software engineering and now I'm going to go to biotech, knowing that that's transferable. And then the third is really out of the box. Like, well, maybe if this door one shuts and door two shuts, like it's just not opening for me right now. Maybe number three is I find a position that I know kind of basic wise that I can come in. It's not my aspirational, but I will go to school and I'm going to learn AI now. So that I'm going to come after a year, I'm going to now have an opening. Maybe we'll see, and so you feed all three. And the human brain, and the psyche kind of like, I want this one. I feel comfortable. But you got to trust it, and you just go in and find out where you land. You will live the most gorgeous, exciting, romantic, passionate, sexy, fabulous, intelligent, expansive life if you dance with chance. It's the greatest romance.
Aw.
Yeah.
So where can we find you?
Easy peasy. Yes. Well, come on over to careerecology.com. That's one word, Career Ecology. So CareerEcology.com. And what I want to do, Crystal, is I'm going to set up a very special page on there that I'm going to give you that link so you can put it in your show notes. And
Okay.
anybody that's listening is welcome to come in and receive a discount off of Career Ecology to gift themselves that for the new year or beyond. It's just open. Anybody who comes in, because the neat thing about podcasting is that they're evergreen. So somebody could be listening to this in 5 years from now. So
Okay.
that coupon for you will always, always be open. And the coupon code will be DOW, DOW. So,
Aw.
but I'll give you the link to give to your listeners so that anybody who wants to just explore and come on in, they're welcome.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you so much. Thank you for sharing today. I have so much gratitude for meeting you. And like I said, my own search I'm in the middle of right now.
Yes.
And it's just opened me up and completely changed how I interview, how I did my resume and my search. Like,
Mm,
I mean,
mm,
it's completely changed the way I think about getting a job or getting a career path or changing my life.
wow. Well, you're natural. As I said, you are a manifester. So I'm not surprised that you barely just clicked it open and got it. So I'm so glad. And I remain here for you always, always, always to support you as you take to the wind with your beautiful wings.
Thank you. Thank you. And I would love to have you on again.
Yes. So much to
Anytime.
talk about. Yes.
Yeah.
I'd love to talk about parenting from this Tao heart perspective. That would be a fun one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a couple people and maybe it'll be a collaborative, like
What panel?
bring in a couple people to
That'd
talk
be
about
fun.
that.
That's a good one.
So, yeah.
Yes.
We'll brainstorm. But
Awesome.
for now,
Yeah. Yes.
we're going to sign off. And again, thank you so much. And yeah, watch more episodes from Tao of the Heart. And I so appreciate everyone that's been watching. And I hope that you take Lori up on her offer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.